You won't see a single penny of my money, not one. My son screamed right in my face, his eyes filled with a coldness I had never seen before. It's $20 million and it's mine. I stood there in the doorway of my own home, feeling like the ground was opening up beneath my feet. This was Sebastian, my only son, the boy I had raised alone after his father died, the same child who used to cry in my arms when he had nightmares. So don't even think about coming to me asking for anything, you hear me? No houses, no money, none of that, oh honey, help me with this or that nonsense. It's over, Mom. O-V-E-R. His words hit me like daggers. I stood there in my flour-stained apron, feeling 40 years of sacrifice evaporate into thin air. Without saying a word, I slowly closed the door. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in my kitchen chair and breathed. But he made a mistake. A mistake that would change everything 1 week later. Before continuing with this emotional story, subscribe to the channel and leave in the comments where you're watching from. I'm sure my story will touch your heart. I'm Carmen Rodriguez. I'm 62 years old, and for 40 years I cleaned offices in Chicago to raise my son alone. My hands rough from bleach, my knees that creak every morning, my shoes patched over and over again. It had all been for him, so he could study, so he could have what I never could. It was a Friday when I saw him on television winning those $20 million on the game show Golden Dreams. I cried with joy watching my boy up there, hugging the host while golden confetti fell from the ceiling. "Oh my God, Sebastian made it!" I shouted alone in my kitchen with the meatballs sizzling in the pan. That night, he came home euphoric, with a bottle of champagne and 1,000 dreams in his eyes. "Mom, we're millionaires!" he yelled while lifting me up in his arms. "You can finally quit that horrible job. I'll buy you a house with a garden." We had dinner late into the night, laughing, crying with joy, imagining a future without worries. I thought about no longer counting pennies at the grocery store, buying new clothes for the first time in years, helping my sister Rosa with her diabetes. But there was something strange in his eyes, a cold gleam that I couldn't interpret that night, as if he was already calculating something I couldn't see. The following days were strange. Sebastian came back twice more, but he no longer talked about us. Now everything was I and my money. The house with a garden we had dreamed about together had become my house. The trips we planned to take transformed into when I travel the world. "Mom," he told me one afternoon while drinking coffee in my small kitchen, "I've been thinking, with so much money, I have to be very careful. There are a lot of people who are going to want to take advantage." "Of course, honey," I replied, still not understanding. "You have to be smart." "Exactly. That's why I've decided that no one can know how much I won, not even you." Those words hurt me like a slap, but I kept smiling. My Sebastian, my boy, the one who used to tell me, "Mom, when I grow up I'm going to take care of you always," was pulling away from me with every word. That night, I stayed awake, looking at the water stains on the ceiling that seemed to change shape with the light from the street lamp. I remembered Miguel, my late husband, and how proud he would have been to see our son succeed. But I also remembered his words, "Carmen, money brings out the worst in people, even in family." I had raised Sebastian alone since he was 15. I worked double shifts so he could study engineering, sewed buttons at night to pay for his books, even sold my gold earrings to buy him the computer he needed. "My son is going to be somebody important," I told my co-workers, even though they were already tired of hearing it. And he made it. He graduated, got jobs, although never stable ones. The last few years had been hard for him. Rent was drowning him. He couldn't find steady work, and I watched as frustration gradually changed him. He became colder, more distant. Visits became less frequent. Phone calls got shorter. That's why when he won the prize, I thought, finally my boy will be happy again. Finally he'll go back to being the loving Sebastian from before. How wrong I was. A week after that uncomfortable conversation, he showed up at my door with new clothes from head to toe, shoes that gleamed, a gold watch. Even his cologne was different. He no longer looked like my son. He looked like a stranger with Sebastian's face. "Mom, we need to talk," he said without even greeting me. He stood in the entrance, as if my house, the house where he grew up, was now too poor for him, as if he was in a hurry to leave. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked, drying my hands on my apron. I had been cooking lentils with sausage, his favorite dish since he was little. I've talked to lawyers and financial advisors, he began without looking me in the eyes. They explained to me that having so much money brings many risks, especially with family. I felt a horrible chill in my stomach. I sat in my usual chair, the one with the embroidered cushion that already looked faded after so many years. They told me that family is always the first target of opportunists, that many families are destroyed by money, he continued. And now he did look at me, but not with love. He looked at me as if I were a threat. Sebastian, I would never, I started to say. I know, Mom, he interrupted, raising his hand. I know you think that way now, but money changes people and I can't take that risk. I can't take that risk. That risk. As if I were a danger. As if 40 years of unconditional love were a threat to his fortune. What are you telling me, son? I asked with a broken voice. I'm telling you it's better if we keep our distance for a while, until everything calms down and I can organize myself properly with my new advisors. The words came out of his mouth, but I couldn't process them. It was as if he were speaking in another language. My son, was throwing me out of his life for money. Distance? I repeated like an echo. Yes, no more frequent visits, no more daily phone calls. I need space to handle my new situation. I got up from the chair, trembling, not from fear, but from a mixture of pain and rage I had never felt. Sebastian, I am your mother, and I will be eternally grateful for everything you did for me, he said, with a coldness that froze my blood. But now, things are different. I have responsibilities that you can't understand. Responsibilities that I couldn't understand. Me, who had worked until my hands were raw to give him a better life. Me, who had cried silently every night so he wouldn't see me suffer. Me, who had sacrificed my last dream to see him succeed. Besides, he continued talking as if he were giving a business conference, my advisors recommended that I change all my phone numbers and addresses to protect my privacy. That's when I understood it wasn't a temporary pause. My son was erasing me from his life forever. Are you abandoning me, Sebastian? I asked him directly, without beating around the bush. He avoided my gaze and adjusted his new watch. Don't see it that way, Mom. It's just a necessary precaution. When everything is organized, I'll see what to do. What to do about me, I repeated, as if I were a problem to solve. You're not a problem, he said, but his tone said otherwise. You're a situation that needs to be handled correctly. A situation. That's what I was to him now. 40 years of maternal love reduced to a situation. I stayed quiet, observing this stranger with my son's face, his expensive shoes stepping on the cracked tile floor of my kitchen, his gold watch gleaming under the yellowish light of my old lamp, his expensive cologne mixing with the smell of the lentils that were getting cold in the pot. What if I get sick? I asked him. What if I need you? You have Social Security, he responded without blinking, and there are social services for people in your situation. In my situation. Poor, old, abandoned by her own son. Sebastian, I told him with a calm that surprised even me, I want you to look at me carefully. Look me in the eyes. He did, although with difficulty. These hands, I said, lifting my wrinkled and stained hands. These hands bathed you when you were a baby, fed you when you were hungry, took care of you when you were sick, worked until they bled so you could have books, clothes, food. Are you really going to tell me I'm a threat to your money? For a moment, a glimpse of the old Sebastian appeared in his eyes, but it quickly faded. Mom, don't make this harder for me. I've already made the decision. When was the last time you told me I love you? I asked suddenly. He stayed quiet. It was 3 months ago, I continued. On my birthday. I made your favorite chocolate cake and you told me I love you, Mom. You're the most important thing in my life. Do you remember? Sebastian looked toward the door, clearly uncomfortable. Things change, he murmured. Money doesn't change who you are, I told him. It only reveals who you really were. Those words bothered him. He straightened up, adjusted his new jacket, and looked at me with a coldness that broke my soul. Look, Mom, I didn't come here to discuss cheap philosophy. I came to tell you how things are going to be from now on. Period. Cheap philosophy. My words of love were cheap philosophy to him. Fine, I told him with a tranquility I didn't feel. Anything else you want to tell me before leaving forever? Don't be dramatic. It's not forever. Sebastian, I told him, looking at him firmly, when you walk out that door, don't come back. If I'm a threat to you, then you're a stranger to me. He was surprised by my firmness. Don't say that. No, I'm serious. If you're going to abandon me, do it completely. Don't come to me with half measures or false hopes. Your mother died today for you, and you died today for me. He stayed quiet for a few seconds that seemed eternal. Fine by me, he said finally. You were always too proud anyway. Too proud. Me, who had swallowed my pride 1,000 times to ask for extra work, to beg for discounts at stores, to accept used clothes from my neighbors. I was too proud. He headed toward the door, and I followed him in silence. Before leaving, he turned around one last time. By the way, he said, taking something out of his pocket, here's your lottery ticket from last week. I forgot to give it to you earlier. He handed me a crumpled paper. It was the national lottery ticket that he had been buying me every week for years. A gesture that had started when he had work, and I had mentioned that I had never been able to afford even dreaming of winning the lottery. Every week, honey, I had told him years ago, every week I see the neighborhood ladies buying their tickets and dreaming. I can't even do that. Since then, every Friday he would arrive with my ticket. So you can dream too, Mom, he had told me the first time. Now he was giving it to me as if it were trash he wanted to get out of his pocket. I took the ticket without looking at it and left it on the entry table. Goodbye, Sebastian, I told him. Goodbye, Mom. And he left, without hugging me, without kissing me, without turning to look at me one last time. I closed the door and stood there with that lottery ticket in my hand, feeling as if they had just ripped my heart from my chest. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed sitting in the kitchen until dawn with the lottery ticket on the table, looking at it as if it were a cursed object. It was from last Saturday's drawing, but I never checked the numbers. It was more about the gesture than the real hope of winning something. But that night, I don't know why, I decided to check. I turned on the old computer that Sebastian had given me years ago, when he still loved me, and looked up the winning numbers from the previous Saturday's drawing. My hands trembled as I typed the numbers on the screen. The first number matched, then the second, and the third. This can't be, I murmured. The fourth number too, and the fifth, and the sixth. I stared at the screen, unable to believe what I was seeing. I took the ticket, checked it again, compared the numbers over and over. There was no doubt. I had the winning ticket for the National Lottery's second prize, $500,000. I sat in my chair and started to laugh. First, it was a soft laugh, then louder, until it became a hysterical cackle that made my stomach hurt. $500,000. It wasn't Sebastian's $20 million, but it was more money than I had seen in my entire life. And the best part, he didn't know. The ticket was in my name, as always, Carmen Rodriguez, the same name that had been taking care of Sebastian his whole life, the same name he had just despised and abandoned. I cried and laughed at the same time. It was as if the universe was telling me, Carmen, all is not lost. During the following days, I didn't tell anyone. I kept the ticket in a shoebox, along with the few pieces of jewelry I had and important documents. I needed time to process everything, to decide what to do. Sebastian didn't call. He didn't write. He didn't show up at the house. He had kept his promise to erase me from his life, but I did know about him. The local news talked about the young millionaire from the South Side who had won the biggest fortune in the show's history. They interviewed him on television. He appeared in magazines. He even opened social media accounts where he showed off his new luxurious life. I saw him buying an apartment in Chicago's most elegant neighborhood, a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan that cost more than $2 million. I saw photos of his new car, a latest model Mercedes in black that shone like a mirror. I saw his expensive suits, his brand-name watches, his trips to New York and Los Angeles. And in no interview, in no photo, at no time did he mention that he had a mother. A week after our last conversation, I decided it was time to claim my prize. I dressed in my best clothes, a navy blue dress I had worn to Sebastian's graduation, and headed to the lottery offices. The employee, a very kind young woman, checked my ticket with a smile. "Congratulations, Mrs. Rodriguez," she told me. "You're very fortunate. $500,000 is a wonderful amount." "Yes," I replied. "Very fortunate." "Are you going to celebrate with your family?" she asked while processing the papers. "No," I told her simply. "I don't have family." It was a lie, and the truth at the same time. Technically, I had a son, but he had already decided that I didn't exist for him. They gave me a check for the full amount, deducting the corresponding taxes. $400,000 net, more money than I had earned in my entire working life. I left the office with the check in my purse, walking slowly through the streets of Chicago. Everything looked the same, but I felt completely different. I was no longer the poor, abandoned Carmen. Now I was the Carmen who had options, who had a future, who had dignity. The first thing I did was go to a bank and open a new account. I deposited the check and asked them to give me a debit card immediately. I wanted to feel that the money was real, that it wasn't a dream. Then I went shopping. Not to the elegant shopping centers where Sebastian now shopped, but to the downtown stores where I had always looked at the window displays without being able to go in. I bought 3 new dresses, comfortable but pretty shoes, a real wool coat I had been looking at in a window for months. I also bought a new smartphone, one of those smart ones that had always seemed too complicated to me. The girl at the store taught me how to use it and helped me create social media accounts. "What do you want Instagram for, ma'am?" she asked with curiosity. "To see what my son is doing," I replied honestly. That night, from my new private account, I looked for Sebastian's profile. He had thousands of followers and constantly posted photos. His millionaire life was a public spectacle. In his latest photo, he appeared in an expensive restaurant, toasting with champagne. The caption said, "Celebrating my new life, only moving forward. Blessed, your millionaire, your new life, only moving forward," without looking back, without remembering who had given him life. But there was something that caught my attention in the comments. Several people asked him about his family, if he was going to share his fortune with his parents. He always responded the same way. "My family is doing very well, thanks for asking." He was lying shamelessly, making people believe he was taking care of me, that he was a good son who worried about his mother. That lie hurt me more than everything before. Not only had he abandoned me, but he was also using my image to look good in front of people. I decided it was time to do something about it. The next day I called my sister Rosa, the only family I really had left. I told her everything, about Sebastian, about the money, about the winning ticket. "Carmen," she told me with a trembling voice, "I can't believe that boy did that to you, after everything you sacrificed for him. He's not a boy anymore, Rosa. He's a 35-year-old man who made a decision, and now I'm going to make mine. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to live," I told her. "For the first time in 40 years, I'm going to live for myself." And so began my new life, with $400,000 in the bank, and without a son who pretended to love me only when it was convenient for him. But that was just the beginning. 3 months after my new beginning, my life had completely changed. I moved to a small but bright apartment in Lincoln Park, with large windows that let in sunlight all morning. It had heating that worked, abundant hot water, and even a small balcony where I put planters with red geraniums. I quit my cleaning job, of course. After 40 years scrubbing other people's floors, my knees could finally rest. I enrolled in painting classes, something I had always wanted to do but could never afford. I also started traveling. Small trips, nothing extravagant, but for me they were enormous adventures. I went to New Orleans and saw the French Quarter. I traveled to San Francisco and walked through Golden Gate Park. I visited Boston and its historic neighborhoods. Every photo I posted on my private Instagram was a small, silent revenge against Sebastian. While he showed off his millionaire life, I was living my dreams with my own honestly earned money. But he knew nothing about this. To him, I was still the same poor, abandoned Carmen he had left crying in her old kitchen. One day, while having breakfast at a cafe near my new apartment, Rosa called me urgently. "Carmen, you have to watch the news," she told me with an agitated voice. "They're talking about Sebastian." I turned on the television, and there was my son, but not as the successful millionaire he showed off on social media. He was being interviewed by an investigative journalist on an exposé program. "Sebastian Rodriguez," the host was saying, You won $20 million 4 months ago. Our program has investigated how you're using that money, and we've discovered some interesting things. Sebastian's face was pale. His hands trembled slightly. Is it true that you've spent more than $8 million in just 4 months? The journalist asked. That's private information, Sebastian stammered. We've also confirmed that you invested $5 million in businesses that turned out to be scams. Can you confirm this? My son shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Businesses always have risks. And what about the $6 million you lent to your girlfriend, Isabella Marconi, for her import company, that turned out to be fake? That's when Sebastian visibly collapsed. How do you know that? We have documents, Mr. Rodriguez. Your girlfriend disappeared with the money 2 weeks ago. Isn't that right? The world stopped for me. My son, my arrogant millionaire, had been scammed by a woman. The $20 million he had so fiercely defended from his own mother, he had happily given to a stranger who had abandoned him. According to our calculations, the journalist continued relentlessly, you have lost or spent $19 million. You have approximately $1 million left, which is being seized for debts from your failed investments. Sebastian stood up abruptly from his chair. This interview is over. One last question, Mr. Rodriguez. Is it true that you abandoned your widowed mother after winning the prize? A woman who worked 40 years to raise you alone? Sebastian froze. That has nothing to do. We have testimonies from neighbors confirming that you told her she wouldn't see a single penny of your money, that you threw her out of your life to protect your fortune. A fortune you've now lost almost completely. My son ran out of the studio. Literally ran, like a scared child. I turned off the television and sat there, processing everything I had seen. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel revenge fulfilled. I only felt a deep and strange sadness. My phone started ringing. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something told me to answer it. Mom? It was Sebastian's voice, broken and desperate. Mom, is that you? How did you get my number? I asked with a neutral voice. Rosa gave it to me. Mom, I need to talk to you. Now you need to talk to me? Please. His voice was a whisper. Please, Mom, I lost everything. I already saw it on the news. Can I see you? I need to see you. I stayed quiet for a few seconds that were probably eternal for him. Where are you? I finally asked. In a cheap motel near Union Station. The penthouse is seized. They took the car yesterday. Which motel? He gave me the address and hung up. I don't know why I decided to go. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was that maternal instinct that never dies, no matter how much they hurt you. An hour later, I was standing in front of the door of a small, depressing room in a 2-star motel. I knocked softly. The door opened, and there was Sebastian. But he wasn't the arrogant millionaire from 4 months ago. He was a haggard man, with deep, dark circles, wrinkled clothes, and unshaven. He seemed to have aged 10 years. Mom, he said, and burst into tears like I hadn't seen him cry since he was a child. I entered the room. It was small, dark, smelling of mold. The walls had water stains, and the single bed seemed to have seen better times. On the floor was an open suitcase with little rumpled clothing. Sit down, I told him, pointing to the only chair. He obeyed like a scolded child. Tell me what happened, I said, and he told me everything. Between tears and sobs, he told me how he had met Isabella at a millionaire's party, how she had seduced him with her beauty and promises of making him even richer, how she had asked him for money to invest in her company, how he, blinded by passion and greed, had given her millions without investigating anything. He told me about the fake financial advisors who had sold him non-existent investments, about the new friends who appeared when he had money and disappeared when he lost it, about the debts that accumulated while he lived in denial, spending as if money were infinite. I lost everything, Mom, he told me with a broken voice. Everything. I have nothing. No house, no car, no job. Nobody wants to hire me because I'm on the news as the idiot who lost $20 million. I listened to him in silence, watching my adult son cry like the scared child he had been many times in his childhood. And what are you going to do now? I asked. I don't know, he admitted. I have nowhere to go. I don't have real friends. I don't have anyone. A long, heavy silence fell. You have me, I finally said. He looked up, surprised. But I abandoned you. I said horrible things to you. I threw you out of my life. Yes, I confirmed. You did. How can you even look at me? He asked. Because I'm your mother, I replied simply. And mothers don't abandon their children, no matter how stupid they are. Sebastian burst into tears again, but now it was a different cry. It was relief mixed with repentance. I don't deserve your forgiveness, he murmured. No, I told him firmly. You don't deserve it, but I give it to you anyway. What came next changed everything. Sebastian, I told him after he calmed down a bit, I have something to tell you. I took out of my purse a copy of the lottery ticket he had given me the day he abandoned me. The same ticket that had been crumpled in his pocket, the last gesture of a routine that had lasted years. Do you remember this? I asked. He looked at the paper without understanding. It's your lottery ticket from that week. Exactly. The ticket you gave me the day you told me I wouldn't see a single penny of your money. And what does that have to do with? This ticket won $500,000, Sebastian. He stared at me as if I had spoken in Chinese. What? $500,000. Second prize in the national lottery. I cashed it 3 months ago. Sebastian's face went through every possible emotion. Surprise, confusion, disbelief, and finally, understanding. You have $500,000? I had them, I told him. Now I have around 400,000 left. But how is that possible? Why didn't you tell me anything? What for? I asked with a sad smile. You had decided that I was a threat to your money, that mothers only want to take advantage of their rich children. Sebastian put his hands to his face. My God, Mom, forgive me. Do you know what's most ironic about all this? I continued. While you were protecting your 20 million from your poor mother, I had my own money. Money I won with the ticket that you bought me every week for years. What? What have you done with the money? I lived, I replied simply. For the first time in 40 years, I lived for myself. I moved to a nice apartment. I quit that job that was killing me. I traveled. I learned to paint. I met new people. I was happy. Sebastian looked at me as if he were seeing a ghost. All this time, I thought you were suffering in your old house, crying for me, he murmured. I did for the first few days, I admitted. But then I decided that if my son could live without his mother could also live without him. A long silence fell. Sebastian processed all the information, the cruel irony of fate, the decisions he had made based on false assumptions. Mom, he finally said, do you hate me? No, I replied honestly. I'm disappointed, I'm hurt, but I don't hate you. Can you ever forgive me? I already forgave you, Sebastian. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, nor does it mean things will go back to how they were before. What does it mean? I got up from where I was sitting and approached the small window that looked out onto a dark alley. It means you're going to have to show me that you've learned something from all this, that the man who abandoned me for greed is not the same one who's here asking for forgiveness. I'll do whatever it takes, he said urgently. Whatever it takes, Mom. Would you accept living with me? I asked, turning around to look at him. With you? Yes, in my new apartment, but with conditions, whatever they are. First condition, you're going to look for work, any job. I don't care if you have to wash dishes or clean floors. You're going to work and contribute to household expenses. Okay. Second condition, no luxuries, no millionaire lifestyle. We're going to live modestly, like normal people. Of course. Third condition, you're going to go to therapy. You have to understand what made you act that way, and you have to make sure it doesn't happen again. Sebastian nodded vigorously. And the last condition, I made a dramatic pause. You're going to help me give back part of my money to people who really need it. How? We're going to create a fund for single mothers who work in cleaning, so they can pay for their children's education or medicine or simply have a break from so much work. Sebastian's eyes filled with tears again. That would be beautiful, Mom. Are you willing to accept all these conditions? Yes, he said without hesitation, all of them. Then pack your things. We're going home. Home? To our home, because homes aren't built with millions of dollars, Sebastian. They're built with love, respect, and mutual sacrifice. 2 hours later, we were in my Lincoln Park apartment. Sebastian looked around as if he were in a palace, even though it was a modest place. "It's beautiful, Mom," he told me. "It's really beautiful." "It's ours," I replied. That night we had dinner together for the first time in 4 months. Nothing elaborate, just some spaghetti with marinara sauce that we prepared together. But it was the best dinner I'd had in a long time. "Mom," he told me while we washed dishes, "there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" "During all these months, while I lived as a millionaire, I was never really happy. There was something I was always missing, a sadness that wouldn't go away no matter how much money I spent. And what was it? You," he said simply. "It was your love, your approval, your presence in my life." I dried my hands and hugged him. A long hug, one of those that heal deep wounds. "The 20 million didn't make me rich," he murmured against my shoulder. "It made me poor. I lost the only thing that really had value. But you got it back," I told him, "and this time you're not going to lose it again." 6 months later, our life had found a new and beautiful rhythm. Sebastian worked at a tech company, a modest but honest position he had gotten after much searching and proving he had changed. He went to therapy twice a week and had started to understand the roots of his behavior. Our fund for working mothers had already helped 15 families. We watched as their children could continue studying, how they could take medical leave without losing everything, how their small but important dreams came true. One afternoon, while I was painting in the small studio I had set up on the balcony, Sebastian came home from work with a strange smile. "Mom," he told me, "I have news. Good or bad?" "Good. Very good." He sat next to me and took an envelope out of his pocket. "Do you remember Isabella? The woman who stole your money? They arrested her in Brazil. They recovered part of the money she scammed from various men, including me." He opened the envelope, and inside was a check. "They're returning $1,200,000 to me." I looked at the check, then at him. "And what are you going to do with that?" "Give it all to the fund," he said without hesitation. "Every dollar." "Sebastian, it's a lot of money. You could buy an apartment, a car." "No, Mom," he interrupted me. "I already learned that money without the people you love is worthless. And I already have everything I need." "What do you have?" "I have you. I have honest work. I have purpose. I have peace." That night I called Rosa to tell her everything. "Carmen," she told me with an emotional voice, "your story should be in the newspapers. It's incredible how everything worked out in the end." "It wasn't coincidence," I replied. "It was justice. The universe has its own way of balancing things." "And what's next?" I looked toward the living room where Sebastian was preparing dinner while humming a song I used to sing to him when he was little. "Now we keep living," I told her. "Day by day, with love, with respect, with gratitude for this second chance." 2 years have passed since that horrible afternoon when my son abandoned me for money. 2 years since I discovered I had my own fortune hidden in a crumpled ticket. Today, as I write this story, Sebastian is in the kitchen preparing cod croquettes, the same ones I used to make him when he was a child. The aroma fills the whole house and brings me beautiful memories of when we were a normal family, without millions of dollars complicating our lives. Our fund has grown, and now we help more than 50 families each year. Sebastian has become a man I admire, not for the money he had or lost, but for the person he became after losing everything. Sometimes people ask me if I hold a grudge against him for abandoning me. The answer is no, because his abandonment led me to discover my own strength, my own capacity to be happy regardless of other people's decisions, even those of my own son. Money revealed who we really were. Him, a man who had lost his values to greed. Me, a woman stronger than I had ever imagined. But love, true love, transformed us both. It returned him to the good man I had raised. It taught me that forgiveness isn't weakness, but the greatest power that exists. Tonight, like every night for the past 2 years, we'll have dinner together. We'll talk about our days, our small but real dreams, the families we're helping, and I'll go to sleep knowing I have the only thing really worth having. The unconditional love of my son, earned this time not through sacrifice, but through dignity and forgiveness. Because in the end, true wealth isn't measured in millions of dollars. It's measured in the hearts you touch, the lives you change, and the family you build with true love, not with money. And we, after losing almost everything, are finally truly rich. If this story touched your soul, give it a like, subscribe, and share your reflection in the comments. Have you experienced something similar? Do you think money changes people or only reveals who they really are? For the next story, click the box on the left. Thanks for joining me on this emotional journey.